Are you going to? There we go.
There you go.
You answered my question. I was going to ask if you were going to record it, and here we
Yeah,
are.
yeah, we just came here.
Very good.
Hello. Yep. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Richard's Podcast Land. And today we'll be having Ryan Andes that's going to be our guest for the interview. But before we get started, how are you doing today so far?
Thank you, Richard. Nice to see you, and nice to be here. I'm doing well. It's kind of a warm day in upstate New York. It's kind of gloomy and rainy today, but otherwise I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Such an honor to have you here in my podcast series. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate being here, man. Thank you for having me.
Yep. I have a lot of questions to ask for you about your career and some simple stuff. Now, further ado,
Great.
let's get started,
Let's
shall we?
get started. Yes, indeed. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, fire away, man. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Here's my first question. What's it like to become a voice actor in many animated shows that you voiced at?
Oh man, it's such a funny path that one takes, and everybody's path is, I think, a little bit different to get to this place. I'd say my journey started when I was a voice major in college, but I was a singer. I actually got my degree in classical music. I studied opera for most of my college years as a bass, an operatic bass. While I was in college, I did get into some radio broadcasting, and I was also, an actor. And so I kind of, I think, naturally gravitated towards doing work behind a mic. But most of the work that I did before this was on stage or sometimes in front of the camera. After I got done with college, I came to New York and decided that opera was not for me. But instead, I pursued musical theater and non-musical theater. Basically, just I think becoming a better actor. And while I was doing that, I also started pursuing voiceover, but not as an actor, mostly as a commercial voice artist. So my first real experience behind the microphone was doing advertising. I think my first spot ever was for a candy bar called Wazoo back in 2006. Yeah, I think 2006 or 2007. So that was a long time ago. And eventually, as you progress and you become a better actor and become more successful in your career, more opportunities come along. And for me, I was able to book a Broadway show in 2013 in Big Fish, playing Carl the Giant. And as a result, I started getting more opportunities, and one of those opportunities was to audition for Darren Dunstan at 4K as a small character on Yu-Gi-Oh! I think it was Zexal playing a character called Eraser, and I booked it and started doing more and more work for them. And while I was at the 4K studio, I met Lisa Ortiz, and Lisa, of course, was the casting director for Pokemon. And so that's how this. So to answer your question in a very long way, my journey kind of took me through a lot of different sort of careers before I finally landed as a voice artist. And what's funny is the last few years that has really become my main focus, and I've been very, very lucky and very happy to do this as for my living. It's kind of a wonderful privilege and something I'm very happy doing.
Well, that's really great to hear. I'm really glad to hear your whole experience so far. Like
Thank you,
speaking,
Richard. I appreciate that.
you're very much welcome. Speaking of Lisa Ortiz, she is such a true legend. Like she's one of the most best and most famous casting directors for a lot of Pokemon series she's
Yeah,
worked on.
she's amazing. She is really, and she's such a good person. She's got a big heart and just a sweet, sweet soul. And she's also an incredibly talented voice actor. She's voiced quite a few characters in her time as an actor, but she is also a very talented director. And it's been really just a pleasure working with her over the past few years. And I owe her, I think, a lot, especially for booking me in the role of Hala. I mean, she was the one who got me that job. So I'm
Yep.
grateful to her.
Yep. Such a true legend. I do remember growing up watching her voice as Amy Rose from Sonic X, which was
Oh,
released
yeah.
in 2003. I think that's the date. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar, but I do know that she had a lot of experience as a voice actor before she became a casting director. And I think she's now moved on. I know she moved to LA. She and I stayed in touch. We also worked on the Pokemon movie together, Secrets of the Jungle, and she cast me as Alpha in that. But that was the last time I really spoke with Lisa, in person. I think it's been a couple years now, but we stay in touch through social media and stuff. And I'm happy to see that it looks like her life is going well, and
Yeah.
she's doing some good work.
Yeah. Such a caring person, all right.
Yes, yes, indeed, she really is. She's
Yeah.
good people. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Say, after you accomplish your whole acting skills, have you ever took any voiceover classes before you made your first demo reel? Like speaking of that,
Mm.
how's it like working with the famous voiceover coach Charlie Adler, who is one of the
Oh,
most recommended voiceover coaches ever?
yeah. Uh, so to answer your first question, I did study with some people, but only with most of my studying before I got into doing cartoon and animation voices was pursuing more commercial stuff. So my first coach was a guy named Stuart Dillon, and he was kind of renowned back in in the I'd say the early days of my career. He had already had a big career and was kind of winding down at that point. But he had a course that you could take, and it was interesting. He even produced my first demo, and I was very excited about it. I got the demo, and I started getting it out to agents, and the response that I got was not positive. People, most of the agents I gave that demo to thought it was terrible, and so I had to learn a hard lesson, which was that not every coach is going to help you produce your best work. And what I as a result, I ended up finding someone that I really deeply connected with and who has become my mentor over the years for commercial voiceover. Her name is Dorianne Elliott. And I'm just so grateful for her. She ended up producing my next demo, which eventually did get me my first agent and help build my career. And so then once you've kind of familiarized yourself with being on mic, as you do with podcasting or anything that you do in this format, you get more comfortable with it and you get better at it. And then I booked, my first big job on Broadway, and that of course led me to booking jobs on cartoons. So then it was after I had booked the work with on Cyberverse with Transformers, voicing the characters of Grimlock, Shockwave, and a few others. My buddy Jeremy Levy, who plays Bumblebee on the show, reached out and asked me if I wanted to take this class with Charlie Adler. And I didn't even know, because he's based in LA and we're based in New York. I didn't even know that was something we could do. And it was actually when I took the class, it was one of his very first online classes, because most of his students were people that he taught in person. So I got this wonderful, unique opportunity to work with Charlie in kind of this way, like in a Zoom format. But it was awesome. I mean, he's, like you said, he's legendary. I mean, the guy is one of the best voice actors on the planet. I mean, he's done an insane amount of work. And I think my experience with him, taught me a lot. I believe I became a better actor and voice artist as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Adler is such a true legend. Like, speaking of him, did you ever grow up listening to his voices in a few animated shows when you were young? Like Tailspin, My
Oh
Little
yeah,
Pony?
Rugrats. Cow, Chicken and Cow. I think he was also in a few others. Oh yeah, I mean, I knew who he was. I don't think I realized he had done so many voices when I signed up for the class. I didn't realize how much he had done until after I started working with him, and then I kind of was blown away by the just insane body of work that he has. Um, but he's a very generous human being. He really cared about us, I think, and had some very cool, very positive things to teach us. And I really do think he helped me become a better voice actor. I'm grateful for him.
Yep. I mean, speaking of your whole experiences about the demo reels and stuff, what I
Mhm.
recommend for people is like the thing is that they have to like make their first demo reel before they could submit it to both of their agencies or the
That's true.
producers
Yep.
whenever they're ready. Because if they just go to a recording studio with no acting experiences,
Yep.
boom, their
Yeah.
money is no more. Trust me.
I think that's a pretty common path, or I should say, um, there should I think there should be a system in place for for booking jobs, and that does seem to be the way it works as far as I know in my experience. You in general terms, in kind of a nutshell version, you find a good coach, you study your work. I think being a good actor before you even start doing anything behind a microphone is a good idea. Learning how to be an actor on stage is a great way to start. And so taking theater classes, finding an acting coach in that way is a really great start. And then, you start becoming more familiar with your instrument, with your voice, and what you can do. And then, you find a person who can help you produce a demo and coach you through that process, which is a lot. I mean, making your first demo is very hard, and usually it's expensive. Um, so it's worth doing when you're ready, and that's why it's, I think, a really important thing to have a coach, because they'll guide you in the way that you need to be guided, so that you're not, like you said, just throwing money away. Um, and then hopefully once you're done, you have a really strong demo, and that is truly when the work begins, because now you've got to get that demo into the right hands and in front of the right people, and then hopefully it's good enough to get the attention of an agent, and then you gotta form that relationship. I'm lucky to have several agents who I've worked with now for many years, and they know me and they know my voice, and so they submit me for the right stuff. But that takes time. All of this it's just a building process. Every building block is built on a strong block before it, and I truly believe that to get to higher levels, you have to have a really really strong foundation. I think that's just the natural way of it.
Yep, true. Their first demo reel should be a commercial one, to be honest. If they want to get started to
Yeah.
animation and video games, starting a commercial is the best way to start.
I agree. I think there are people who don't naturally, I think, take to commercial voiceover. I do believe that is a fairly niche industry. Now, most people who do voiceover, or I should say, who are voice actors, also do commercial voiceover. But I know a few who don't. Like Darren Dunstan, for example. I know he's auditioned for things, but I think he came into voice acting um, primarily as a voice actor, and doesn't do a whole lot of commercial work. I think he probably would do well in commercials if he wanted to. But I think most of his focus has been in casting and in directing and in voice acting only. But for the most part, I think you're correct that getting a commercial demo and getting your commercial stuff figured out first is the better way. And I say that because voice acting doesn't pay the bills necessarily. If we're just being realistic, commercial voiceover is, I believe, where you can make a living, and then you book smaller voice acting jobs once you've covered the bases, as a sort of supplemental thing, until maybe the day comes where you book a really big voice acting gig that could sustain you for a while. But those are rare and hard to get, and I believe commercial voiceover is a really good way to, again, sustain yourself while you're in the pursuit of more creative endeavors.
Yeah, true, honestly. You do have a good point there.
Thanks. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's just what I've experienced too. I've been lucky. I consider myself very lucky to have a very strong commercial voiceover presence and a strong team. And I'm able to, I book a fair amount of commercial voiceover work, and that's how I'm able to do what I do. I think I'm also kind of a natural born hustler, so I'm always trying to come up with other ways to create income and use my talent. And I also work with my hands a lot. I'm in another sort of aspect of myself. I'm also a craftsman, and I make things. I make high end leather goods, and I make jewelry and metal hardware. So you find the things that I don't know, that speak to you in ways that are satisfying, and follow them. And again, I just consider myself very lucky to have been able to find those things.
Yeah, honestly. Actually, you're actually one of the only voice actors that ever told me all of these experiences and stuff. Like, I should actually put that in my book someday when I pursue this as my career.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of an important part of this. I do believe that it's important to be focused on just a few things. That having too many things to focus on can be detrimental. But I believe that in this industry, it is important to be multifaceted, to have as many skills or interests or ways that you can monetize your product as possible. And I I think some people might say that that's a way of diluting yourself, but I also believe that it's a way of surviving in a very tough industry. Uh, and until you find the thing that really kind of, you know, pops. And once you find that, then you lean into it. But at first you really got to take some broad strokes.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
At least that's how it's
Yeah.
been for me.
Yep, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
But again, I can't express my gratitude and my feeling of fortune enough. I really do think that I found something cool, and I was also influenced a lot by my grandfather, who was also an actor and a voice actor. Um, and he had a very successful career. He was on
Yeah.
Broadway for a while, and then he went on to star in movies in Hollywood. He was an A-lister for a while and had his own TV show. And then in his later career became a voiceover guy and was the voice of Honda for a long time. But the thing that I love is that he was cast as the original Birdman in the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. To me, that's just a great example of I think how how a performing career kind of can uh, unfold. You start in one way, you start as an actor on stage, and then you move to TV, and then you sort of kind of just follow the path of least resistance. And but you're always kind of utilizing the same skill set, right? Your basis as an actor never really changes.
Yeah, you actually do have a good point. Like, speaking of your grandfather, I actually don't remember watching Birdman as a kid, like the cartoon that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Your grandfather is such a true legend. Trust me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. I mean, he's passed now, but
Yeah.
he did some really amazing work. The Birdman thing was just one small part of that, but he did movies with Marilyn Monroe, with Angela Lansbury, with Glynis Johns. He worked with Lucille Ball on Broadway, with Alfred Drake. I mean, he had a really amazing and multifaceted career. I mean, the kind of thing that it feels like is hard to do nowadays. I think it's gotten more difficult as we've progressed, and I do believe that has a lot to do with just the way the world is, internet and social media, you have to be so much more invested in your career than you did, at least as far as being self-promoting and being a good marketer. There's a lot more work that I think goes into it in those ways than it used to be.
Yeah. What I do recommend to all the aspiring voice actors is just one more thing to recognize. Practice is the only word to focus.
Mm.
Don't forget that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, I agree. I think you're the only way to get good at anything is to do it often and to fail at it a lot. You kind of have to suck at something before you don't suck at it.
Yeah. True.
um, but I also have like this tendency to always want to learn more things. And, I taught myself how to be a photographer recently. I took my own headshots. I'm constantly learning. I'm teaching myself how to play the violin. I just find that like the more we push ourselves, the more we practice things and, focus on what makes us happy and what challenges us, the more, I don't know, fulfilled and satisfied you can be. Again, I'm just speaking from my own experience, but I think that is kind of a universal truth in some ways.
Yeah, true. Really glad to hear your whole experience so far. I'm
Thanks,
really
Richard.
happy.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I
you're very
appreciate it.
much welcome.
So I take it you're going to become a voice actor someday as well.
Hopefully someday, if there's a
Yeah.
chance, because I did remember my sister bought me this book called Voice Acting for Dummies that she got for Christmas. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you got to start somewhere. I mean, that's at least that'll probably give you some information. Probably your best bet is, I'd say, if you want to really do it, I'd say take an acting class, go to a theater, and
Yeah.
find someone that you trust, find a coach that you like, and get good at acting that way. I think that's a good start.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, right on, man. Right
Mhm.
on. Well, I'm happy to talk a little longer if you have a few more questions, or otherwise, I'm good too. Whichever you like.
Well, we're just a little early because I have a lot of questions to ask you
Okay.
about your characters.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to try to shut us down.
It's fine.
I'm more than happy to talk longer.
It's all right.
What else would you like to talk about?
How's it like being the voice of Hala from Pokemon Sun and Moon, the series?
it's it's a pleasure and it's an honor. I it's been a few years now since I've done any voicing for Hala. I think, oh man, I think it's been about 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute pleasure. Again, working with Lisa is such a cool thing. She's really really good at what she does, and she knows exactly what she wants. She knows how to get from you what she needs for the show. I think Lisa, through her, the show took on a really more elevated feel. It had such a great style um, and a depth of acting to it that I think only Lisa really could produce. Um, I'm grateful. I'm just grateful that I got to work on it. What's weird is that at the time, however much I enjoyed doing it, I didn't think about it in terms of, um, it's when you're in it, you just really kind of think about it like a job. I wasn't aware of how important or how cool Hala would become after the fact. In the moment, all you're doing is showing up to your call time, and you get in the booth, and you have a chat with Lisa, and you joke around a little bit, and then you start working, and you go through your cues, and she explains to you what's happening on the show that day, and you go, okay, all right. So Hala's, he's teaching, Ash a lesson, or they're going to battle today, so we've got to get ready for, some big voice acting moments. But yeah, in the moment, you really don't like, once you're done, it takes you maybe an hour or two to do the session, and then you go off to Chipotle and have a burrito. It's like you don't think about the fact that you've just been on Pokemon. All of that realization comes, I think, when the show is when it's released and you get some kind of response from fans who love the show. I don't think I realized how big of a deal it was at the time, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be crazy watching Pokemon when I was a kid, but hopefully I could get to be in a Pokemon series someday if there's a chance. But I'm really happy to hear your whole experience so far playing as Hala in that show. Like,
Thanks.
yeah, like speaking of it, did you ever stay in touch with any of the other cast members like Mark Swint, Allison Lee Rosenfeld?
Sure. Sure. I still know all those guys. In fact, I just saw Allison. We have the same agent actually in New York. And so our agency had like a little Christmas party and she was there and I got to say hello to her there. I still, Sarah Natashini and I are friends, in the sense that we like still, we still see each other and check in every now and then. Erica, oh my gosh, why am I
Erica
forgetting her?
Schroeder?
Erica Schroeder, of course, yes. Who else do I know from the show? Eddie Lee, I still see him occasionally. I moved upstate, so I don't see as many people as I used to when I was in the city, going to auditions and such. But yeah, once you're once you're in sort of your little world, you tend to see the same people a lot. Especially in New York. New York, it's a big town, but it doesn't have a whole lot of dubbing actors in it. And it's mainly because there aren't that many shows that are being produced in New York. Most of that work happens in other places like LA or Dallas. So we tend to see each other a lot.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm really glad to hear it so far.
Yeah. 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 No, actually, weirdly enough, I also knew Abe Goldfarb for years before we started working on Pokemon together. And what's funny is you never see anybody. When you're in a session recording your role, you're not with other people. It's just you and Lisa, and that's it. The only time I ever really got to see anybody was when we would have like an end of season cast get together or something like that, and I'd finally get to put some faces to names. But Abe Goldfarb and I go back years before Pokemon. We were in the same. We kind of like hung out in the same theater communities. We did shows together in this little theater in Brooklyn called The Brick. I just knew Abe and I knew each other pretty well for years before that. So that's cool. It was neat to see Abe's trajectory, and he's still on a great path, man. He's working all the time.
Well, that's really awesome. I mean, I heard a lot of the recordings for Pokemon are in New York City, but with the
Yeah.
home studio and internet connection, it's coming everywhere, like every state, like Texas, Los Angeles, and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's made it so that there's a much greater pool of people who can now record or audition for the show, for any show really. The pandemic changed that. Before the pandemic, most auditions and recordings were happening in the studio, and that's why you had to be in the city. But the pandemic, I was lucky to be one of the people who already had a home studio built when the pandemic hit, and so I was basically able to continue working without a hitch. And then I upgraded my studio when I moved away, and so I built this studio that we're in now, which is a whisper room. And this is where I'd say almost all of my work is in this room. But yeah, I think the game has changed. We are much more in a digital world, and it does mean that having a strong home studio really matters now. You really have to have a good mic, a good connection, a good interface in order to, I think, be taken seriously now.
Yeah, I mean, making a home studio could be really expensive, you know.
It
It
can
could
be.
cost around like $110,000 for a whole set to build.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
I think that's on the very high end of it. Yes, I mean sure if you're building everything from scratch. Fortunately, there also are companies that build things like what I'm in, which are like a prefabricated booth. This is a whisper room, and they're based in New York. Um, and they basically, you can just buy like the size you want. They send you the parts, and you can just put it together for about a tenth of what you mentioned,
Yeah.
or less. But yeah, you're right. It's not. I'd say it's not the cheapest, but there are ways you can have a decent home studio without having to spend a ton of money. There's so many mics out there. There are industry standards that I think most people rely on, but you can still produce pretty decent work, professional grade work, without one of those mics. Like the Shure SM7B is a pretty good entry level $300 mic that you'll find in a lot of studios. Personally, I do almost all of my work now on this mic, which is the Sennheiser 416 shotgun, and I also do have a Neumann TLM 103 for other types of gigs, but that's I'm also at pro level, so you can spend much less than that and still get very decent audio quality, and set up a room like a closet in your house, and get a pretty good studio out of that too.
Yep, true. You do have a good point there, in fact.
Yeah, thanks.
You're very much welcome.
I have a lot of friends who have done it that way, and they're doing okay. They're doing okay. They still work from home and can record sessions without having a super expensive setup.
Yeah, true. You do have a good point there.
Yeah.
Twice. I should actually be able to look that up someday before I could set up my home studio. If I have enough cash and the best equipments, thank God I don't use this mic for my voiceovers.
Oh yeah. What mic do you have there?
Oh, it's a pseudo tag. I think it's
Hmm.
800 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Hold on. I think it's just a regular pseudo tag, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I think there's a mic that is better suited for every voice. So not buying the best mic may not be the best option for you. You really, I think, experience will dictate, I think, the better mic, because you'll find that certain mics are better suited for your type of voice. I find that to be the case with this particular mic. The Sennheiser is a great mic for my voice because I have such a low voice. Whereas like a TLM 103, I think is preferred for a lot of other people in other professional studios because it's able to capture a much wider range of timbre, and is much more of I'd say, a more dynamic mic. But yeah, this is all, yeah, pins is all brass tacks. Like this, it's all very subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Next question.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. How's it like playing Grimlock and Shockwave from everyone's favorite cartoon show, Transformers?
Oh man, what a dream come true that was. That was a show that I had to audition for quite a few times before I booked it. Um, and it was with Jen Suckup, who's a wonderful casting director, and um, some of the writers were part of the process. But man, it was such a outstanding job. I mean, one of the best things about that show was that it was not a dubbing job. It was a prelay for a job for a show that was going to be animated to our voices, which is very rare in New York. Most of that work happens in New York, or sorry, in LA, not in New York. Um, so we got the really cool and unique opportunity to kind of create new characters for this whole new Cyberverse reboot, and do it strictly out of New York, which is very unusual and very unique.
Yeah, I'm so happy you had a good opportunity to be in that universe. Like, speaking of it, did you ever grow up watching some of the original Transformers cartoons when you were
Oh, of
young?
course. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was what I was raised on. So, when I was auditioning for Grimlock, I expected that he would be like the G1 Grimlock, which was, this, like, dumb, roaring brute. But, Randolph Hurd, who's the guy who, was responsible for the reboot and one of the main writers, wanted to create a different Grimlock. He wanted to have robot version of Grimlock, which was kind of like he called him like a Three Musketeer who understood science, like a smarter version of Grimlock. And then when he turned into a dinosaur, he was, the Grimlock that we all know and love. So I, of course, brought with me the remembrance, the voice of old Grimlock. But then I got a chance to kind of create a new version as well. So there was definitely an influence for me, which was great. Kind of felt like I was paying homage.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of it, do you remember like they have like the Grimlock and the Shockwave Funko Pops you can sign for all of your fans?
Oh, I have a bunch. I have them anytime I do a con. I have a pretty good collection of Funko Pops of both Shockwave and
Yeah.
Grimlock now, and I'd say those are the ones I sign and sell the most. So if you're interested, you can reach out. I'm gonna actually start probably doing some more things like that on Streamily or maybe on Whatnot. Or you can always come and find me at a convention and I can sign one for you there.
Yep, it's a promise.
All right. I hope to see you there sometime soon.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How is it like playing the voice of Faust from Yu-Gi-Oh! Frames?
Oh yeah, Faust. Yeah, that was a fun role. That was actually the last one I did for Yu-Gi-Oh. Got to work with Darren Dunstan on that one. He's fantastic. What a awesome casting director he is. Um, and it was kind of a different vibe for me. I got to play, a more of a serious bad guy, which is also what I got to do with Shockwave. So I'd say that Faust sort of laid some of the groundwork for what I ended up doing with Shockwave years later. Um, yeah, but that was fun. I mean, again, I didn't realize how big of a deal that would be. But Faust isn't really a huge character. He's kind of a third or secondary character. Um, but it was a lot of fun. I especially loved the Pokemon battles. I think the one with Playmaker was the one I remember, and yeah, that stuff's great. You get to be a supervillain. There's nothing cooler than being a supervillain.
Yeah, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Frames is such an awesome Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. Like, I don't
Yeah,
remember like growing up the original ones when I was a kid, but I did remember watching some of them in 4Kids Entertainment, which is a good company actually.
yeah, yeah. They're great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been very fortunate to work with them on a few shows actually. I played Claude in Arc 5, I think, or Zexal, one of the two.
Hmm.
But I've been able to, yeah, I've had a few characters with them over the years, and that's it's been a privilege. Actually, what's nice too is that Darren Dunstan, his husband and they both live up near me now, and so I see Darren and his husband at the gym all the time. So they're basically they're like my neighbors up here in the Hudson Valley, which is cool. There's not too many of us voice actor folk up this way, and it's nice to have some community.
Yeah, it looks like you and Darren's are like friendly neighbors to each other. Hopefully, you
Yeah, we
can
are.
bump into each other and have like dinner or play games together someday.
Yeah, we've actually talked about that. We both also have we have dogs, and our dogs are friends. So we actually, the next time we hang out, we're planning on a dog date. So I'll keep you posted.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. What are your future roles that you would like to voice in the nearby future? It could be like Demon Slayer, DC,
Hmm.
or Looney Tunes, or something.
Oh man. Boy, I send out a lot of auditions. It, it honestly, I would love to have a regular role on a show that was, you know, popular. Right now, like, doing the smaller cartoons or the dubbing is great, but, I really do want to be doing more creative and more original work. Um, and a lot, again, those studios, I think, mostly are based in places like Los Angeles or in Texas. Um, but the goal is to, have a regular character on a big show. I think if I were to choose something like Castlevania is great. I mean, the voice acting on that show is outstanding. The show itself is so well done. That would be a pretty high pinnacle for me. And then, I love comedy, so shows like uh Central Park or Big Mouth, those are the kinds of comedy that I enjoy, and so I would probably get a real kick out of voicing a character on one of those.
Well, that's really great to hear. Hopefully, if there's a chance you could get to voice them in the future, if
Yeah.
God notices, there would be a chance. But
Well,
we'll
thank you.
see. Yeah.
I think it's God has something to do with it. It also is a lot of just legwork, man. You gotta hit the pavement, you gotta make your contacts, you gotta get good auditions sent. But my plan is to get out to LA more and start solidifying some more relationships. I think that's actually the best way to book those jobs. It just takes time, it takes a lot of time and a fair amount of, like I said, legwork, but usually it pays off.
Yeah, true. Once you move to LA, once you're all ready, make sure to be careful because there's a lot of earthquakes happening. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm actually from LA, and so I grew up with that stuff. But I don't plan on moving back there anytime soon.
Hmm.
I'll keep it in mind though if I ever do.
Yeah. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. Um,
Oh,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed our conversation. It's been a nice chat.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining here. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best. Anytime you want to reach out, any questions you have about becoming a voice actor, just let me know.
All right. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And remember, stay awesome, stay positive, and stay happy for all of your fans. All right. Take
Thank
care,
you, Richard.
Ryan.
That's very sweet, buddy. You too, bud. I'll talk
You,
to you later.
you too. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye bye.